I now recognize for 5 minutes Mr. Arrington from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had votes called, and coming in and out of the committee hearing is not ideal. I'm sure people have asked similar questions. I apologize in advance if this is duplicative, but thank you for your time and your input. I've got one philosophical question for Ms. Vanderberg. I appreciate the concerns that we all share about forced labor, and you in particular in your organization. By the way, I hope they're equally concerned with the human trafficking that's happening at our southern border, because in part I think our nation's policies have made us complicit because we've empowered the human traffickers to do that. That's a separate issue. I don't want to be that guy that goes off track here, but China cheats. They steal, they manipulate currency, they steal IP, they send spy balloons to collect data from military installations, they collect data on our children. They are our biggest adversarial threat, and they are the worst human rights violators, and yet we work so hard to try to have this reciprocal trade partnership. I'm perplexed by that relationship. We hold a different standard for China than we do Cuba and other countries. We can be indignant about these things that you care about and I care about when it's another country that has a small market, but if it's a big market, and listen, I'm speaking against some of my own district interests, that I have the largest cotton patch in the world. We make more cotton in a 100-mile radius of Lubbock, Texas, around Lubbock, Texas, than any cotton-producing region in the world, and our number one market is China. So I'm talking against this interest for a minute. I mean, what should our policy be with China? What is our principle? What are our prevailing views? What are the goals we're trying to achieve? Because it's not working. I'll just leave it there and let you all respond. Are you equally perplexed by this? Is it just that complicated of a relationship, Mr. Stumo?
Thank you. It's it's like Groundhog Day. We tried this, in WTO, letting China in, where they were going to, we were going to trade with them. They're going to be an open, democratic, capitalistic economy. They've gone a different way. That's totally been false. We did it with Russia. They were going to be open, democratic, capitalistic. They invaded Crimea and now of Ukraine. So it doesn't work. And with China, it's totally non-reciprocal. We have a country that we like to consume cheap stuff rather than produce stuff. The Germans, the Japanese, the South Koreans, they focus on production there. They don't focus on production somewhere else with their allies. And by the way, allies are, fair weather friends. We have conflicting interests,
Yes.
one day versus another, but they focus on there. They dominate their home market and then export. We can't even dominate our home market because we don't produce enough to even fulfill our home market.
Wow.
The trade is the tail, the production is the dog. We've got to focus on the dog. In China, we can't buy Chinese land. We can't buy Chinese stock in Chinese companies. We can't put our Lincoln Institutes into their universities. They put their Confucius Institutes in our universities. They don't allow our de minimis goods in there. And if they do allow somebody in there, we're out in a few days, but they steal our IP and then they ship it back to us and we don't even inspect it because it comes back in our de minimis shipments. So, and we are funding their rise, we're funding their military, we're funding their ability to invade Taiwan. Other countries are not. There is no other country that can absorb the excess production of China like nobody's big enough and stupid enough like we are. The Japanese, the EU, nobody does it, it's us.
That is the best, most comprehensive response to that question since I've been a United States congressman and been on this committee. The only thing you missed is the fact that we are also underwriting their policies and programs because we borrow from them and we pay them a tremendous amount of interest, and that interest is going up. Last point in 8 seconds, let's see if I can do this. anybody can take this on. I heard my colleague say it's not authority, it's capacity. How in the world are we going to modernize and allow CBP to do their job to facilitate commerce and protect us from terrorism and other things in terms of their safety and security mission when they're overwhelmed and overrun by an open, chaotic, lawless border? I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. Would you indulge one of the witnesses to just try to answer that?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would just like to make the point that the China issue, of course, is complicated, but how can these decisions even be made when, for example, right now in dozens of airports throughout the United States, cargo shipments coming in from China and elsewhere are coming in blind. We have no idea the public has no idea who is importing these shipments, what's in the boxes. Until we have complete trade transparency, we have a big blind spot in terms of what's happening with China and what's being imported into the U.S. and by whom.
Thank you. How about the shipment of synthetic opioids from across the border in the illicit opioid trade? But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've been very indulgent and patient with me, and it's because you claim to have the largest agriculture district in America, and I'm going to
Data-driven.
back.
Data-driven.
Data-driven. Thank y'all.